decade, an epidemic has arisen in the Rocky Mountain region of Colorado. This epidemic involves the lodgepole pine and Dendroctonus, a 5-millimeter insect otherwise known as the mountain pine beetle. Normally, the relationship between these two organisms is balanced and symbiotic. However, several human impacts have created climatic changes in the Rocky Mountain region. These climatic changes have been manifested in lengthened summers and warmer winters. The increased population growth of the mountain pine beetle has created several environmental issues because mountain pine beetle infestations are in fact fatal to the lodgepole pine due to the introduction of blue stain fungi. This increased tree mortality has created several complications for water quality and quantity in Coloradan watersheds. While these impacts are not currently dangerous, it is important to understand these impacts in order to effectively address the mountain pine beetle epidemic.
It might seem like the mountain pine beetle only affects trees, but this little bug can also impact people, wildlife, and water as it changes the local ecosystem. Scientists studying the impacts of mountain pine beetle in the Rocky Mountains have found that it could be having an impact on the hydrologic cycle in affected areas. The hydrologic cycle is a term for the way that water moves in the environment. Water cycles through several stages, like water vapor in the atmosphere, rain or snow falling to the ground, surface water like we find in streams and lakes, and groundwater, which is stored deep under the earth. The way that water cycles through an ecosystem is dependent on many factors that are being impacted by the mountain pine beetle outbreak. When trees die due to the pine beetle, several changes occur. First of all, the dead trees stop taking in the water from the soil that live trees need to survive. This means that there's an increased amount of water in the soil since very few trees are taking it up anymore. Additionally, the needles of the trees begin to fall off, leading to bare tree branches and high amounts of pine needles on the forest floor. Normally, when precipitation, like rain or snow, falls into the ground, some of the water is intercepted by vegetation. The bare branches of the gray-faced trees cannot intercept much water, leading to an increased amount of throughfall, or precipitation that falls all the way to the forest floor. Additionally, the increased amount of dead pine needles or litter fall on the forest floor causes changes in the chemical composition of water. The increased amount of water in the soil could cause changes in the forest. Water moves over and through soil and towards rivers and streams, meaning that if there's more water in the soil, more water will flow into streams. More water might not sound like a bad thing, but increased amounts of water running off can cause increased soil erosion. Additionally, the water is not necessarily clean. Typically, when there are higher flows of water present in a system, this water moves more quickly and picks up more sediment particles as it moves. Basically, higher flows tend to have lower quality. Much of the water in Colorado flows downhill, from forested mountain watersheds into streams that flow to water treatment plants where the water is treated for human consumption. This water contains impurities like pine needles, soil, and bacteria. There are many steps in treating water to make it clean enough for you to drink it. Particles that are suspended are removed, then the water is filtered to remove even smaller particles of dissolved salts and metals. Finally, water is treated with chlorine to remove bacteria that can make you sick. Water that comes from areas with large amounts of trees killed by pine beetles could have higher levels of something called dissolved organic carbon, or DOC for short. All water contains some DOC, but water from streams that flow through pine beetle infested areas could have much more than they did before the outbreak. When water is disinfected with chlorine, excess DOCs in the water react with chlorine and form a compound called trihalomethane, a disinfectant byproduct, or DMP. Disinfectant byproducts have been shown to cause cancer in humans after long periods of exposure. A little bit is probably okay, but if humans drink water that has too high levels of DMPs for a long enough period of time, the chemical could become harmful. Although there are currently no imminent human health risks associated with drinking water from MPB-infested watersheds, this is just one example of an indirect consequence of the infestation for water quality.
As you can see, research and monitoring activities have determined significant impacts on water quantity and quality due to the mountain pine beetle infestation throughout Colorado. Factors such as increased snowmelt runoff, reduced transpiration, increased dissolved organic carbon, and increased metal mobility have all shown that the impacts on ecosystems and watersheds due to the mountain pine beetle is either negative or neutral. Thus, while no current threat to public health is apparent, it is important that we continue investigation into this epidemic in order to further inform management and policymaking to preserve our forests and watersheds for future generations.